The sun still rises in the year 536, and that is what makes it terrifying. You wake before the village is fully awake, lying on a bed of straw beneath a low roof blackened by years of smoke. The air inside the house is cold enough to make your breath pale in front of your face. Somewhere near the hearth, the last red coal is buried under ash, weak and stubborn, not dead yet, but not strong enough to warm the room. Your hands find the edge of your wool blanket. It is rough, damp in places, and it smells of smoke, sweat, and the animals that shared the winter with you. For a moment, nothing seems unusual. The floor is hard beneath your feet. The clay wall sweats in the morning chill. A child coughs softly in the dark. Outside, a rooster calls, and a dog answers from somewhere beyond the fence. The world is doing what it always does. Morning has come. But when you push open the wooden door and step into the yard, the light is wrong. It is not darkness. That would be easier to understand. It is not night. It is not storm. The sky has brightened, and the sun is somewhere above the fields, but it hangs there like a pale coin behind dirty cloth. It gives light without strength. It touches your face without warmth. You stand barefoot on packed earth, feeling the cold climb through your soles, and you wait for the familiar bite of morning sun on your skin. It never comes. Around you, the village begins to stir. Doors creak open. Smoke slips from roof holes. A woman carries a wooden bucket toward the well with her shoulders hunched against the cold. A man leads a thin cow out from behind a fence and pauses, looking upward longer than he should. Nobody says much at first, because people in your world do not waste words before work. The animals need feeding. The fire needs waking. The bread needs cutting. The fields need watching. A day does not stop just because the sky looks sick, but everyone notices. The old man near the lane crosses himself. Someone mutters that the light has been weak for days. Someone else says it is only mist. But mist burns away. This does not. This hangs over the land as if the air itself has turned tired. You do not know about volcanic dust high above the world. You do not know about particles circling the sky, scattering sunlight before it can reach your fields. You do not have a word for global climate. You have omens. You have prayers. You have stories told beside the fire when the wind presses against the walls. You have the memory of last winter, the fear of next winter, and the simple knowledge that grain does not grow from fear. A few miles away, the old Roman road still cuts across the countryside, cracked and grass-grown, leading toward towns that are smaller than they used to be. Somewhere far beyond your village, kings argue, bishops write letters, and an emperor in the east still dreams of making Rome whole again. None of that warms your hands. None of that fills the storage pit. What matters is the sky above your barley. What matters is whether the soil will wake. What matters is whether the sun, pale and silent above you, will do the one thing every living thing depends on it to do. By noon, the yard should be softer with heat. The mud should loosen. The air should carry the smell of thawing earth and animal breath. Instead, the cold remains. It settles into your sleeves. It sits in your fingers. It makes the children quiet. You look at the fields beyond the fence, at the thin green shoots that should be pushing upward with confidence. And for the first time that morning, the fear becomes clear enough to name. The problem is not that the sun has vanished. The problem is worse. The sun is still there, and it is failing you. By the time the weak morning has settled over the village, you understand something that no one wants to say aloud. Your world was never strong. It only looked steady because yesterday happened to become today, and today usually becomes tomorrow. The fence around your yard, the low house behind you, the strip of field beyond the lane, the church bell in the distance, the old road cutting across the hills, all of it feels permanent when you are born inside it. But permanence is a trick people tell themselves when the harvest has not failed yet. You live in a Europe built on old bones. The empire that once paved roads, guarded towns, moved grain, stamped coins, and told people where power came from is gone in the West. Not gone like a house burned overnight. Gone like a fire that has been fading for generations, leaving behind ash, black stones, and stories told by people who never saw the flame. The road near your village is Roman, or so the older people say. Its stones are uneven now, split by frost, grass pushing through the cracks. Carts still use it when the weather allows, but no great army repairs it. No official crew arrives with tools and orders. When a stone sinks, people step around it. When a ditch clogs, Water gathers until the mud becomes part of the road. You have seen bits of broken tile in the fields, red and hard, from buildings no one remembers building. You have heard of towns where walls still stand, but where fewer people live inside them than before. The old world has not vanished completely. It has become something you walk past on the way to gather firewood. In its place are smaller powers. A local lord with men who expect obedience. A bishop whose words carry weight because heaven feels closer than any distant king. A village headman who knows who owes grain, who owes labor, who has a pig healthy enough to count, and who is pretending not to be hungry. There are laws, but they travel slowly. There are rulers, but they are far away until someone comes to collect what you owe. Most days, the world is not managed by greatness. It is managed by memory, habit, fear, and the need to keep enough food between your family and winter. This is why the strange sky matters so much. A rich man can lose comfort and still remain rich. A town can close its gate and wait a little longer. A monastery can open its storehouse carefully, counting every sack. But your life has almost no empty space inside it. Your margin is thin as a knife edge. One bad rain can hurt you. One sick animal can change the season. One ruined patch of barley can follow you all year. You do not need the world to end for your world to end. You only need the soil to give back a little less than you put into it. And now the sun above you is pale, the air is cold, and the green shoots in the field look uncertain, as if even the plants are waiting for permission to live. Before the sky became strange, your life was not easy, but it had a pattern, and patterns are what keep fear from spreading too quickly. Morning begins with the fire. Always the fire. If the coals survive the night, the day starts with gratitude no one says out loud. You kneel near the hearth, push aside the gray ash with a stick, and find a dull red glow hiding underneath, faint as an old memory. Dry straw goes first, then small twigs, then a split piece of wood saved from yesterday. Smoke gathers low under the roof before it finds the hole above and escapes. It stings your eyes. It scratches the inside of your throat. You blink, cough once, and keep working, because smoke in the lungs is not an event in your world. It is part of being alive indoors. Breakfast is not a meal the way a modern person would imagine it. There is no table covered with choices, no clean glass of orange juice, no hot coffee waiting in a cup. There is bread, if the last baking has not gone stale beyond chewing. There is a little porridge, stretched with water, stirred in a blackened pot. There may be cheese if the animal gave enough milk. There may be a few dried beans, a scrap of onion, a heel of yesterday's loaf softened near the fire. The bread is dense, dark, and hard enough to make your jaw work for it. You eat slowly because eating slowly makes less food feel larger. The child near the wall watches every bite. The woman beside the hearth breaks her portion smaller than yours and pretends not to notice that you noticed. Outside, the village is already moving. A wooden bucket knocks against the side of the well. Chickens scratch at frozen dirt. Someone curses softly at a broken strap. A pig noses through straw, looking for anything that can be swallowed. The smell of the morning is smoke, damp wool, wet earth, animal breath, and the sour edge of bodies that have spent too many cold nights sealed inside small rooms. It is not pleasant, but it is familiar, and familiar things can almost feel safe. After eating, you go to the field. Your field is not large. Measured in modern terms, it might be only a few acres worked with more hope than strength. The soil is heavy in places, thin in others, and every part of it has to be understood by hand. You know where water gathers after rain. You know where the earth warms first. You know which strip gave less last year. You know which corner you silently distrust. The tools are simple: wood, iron, rope, muscle. Nothing moves unless a person or an animal makes it move. There is no machine coming to save a late season. There is no store in the next town where grain can be bought cheaply if your own fails. The harvest is not an economic event. It is the wall between your family and hunger. By mid-morning, you check the shoots again. They should be stronger. They should look eager, as if the earth is pushing them upward. Instead, they sit low and hesitant in the cold light. You rub soil between your fingers. It feels wrong, not dead, but slow. Behind you, the village bell sounds from the small church, thin across the fields. People will pray today, as they prayed yesterday, as they will pray tomorrow. But prayer does not sharpen a plow. Prayer does not fill a basket. Prayer does not make weak sunlight warm the ground. You stand there with dirt under your nails, smoke still in your hair, and breakfast already fading from your stomach, and you understand the quiet bargain your life has always depended on. You work, the earth answers. You endure, the seasons turn. You give everything your body has, and the field gives back enough to begin again. That was the agreement. Now, under a pale sky that seems to be looking away, you are no longer sure the agreement still holds. Spring should feel like a door opening. In a normal year, the air begins to loosen. The ground softens under your heel. Water runs more freely in the ditches. Birds return to the hedges. The animals grow restless in the yard, smelling grass before there is enough of it to eat. Even the poorest person in the village can feel that small mercy in the body, the moment when winter stops pressing its hand against your chest. But this year, spring arrives like someone too weak to stand. The days lengthen, but they do not warm. The sky brightens, but it does not clear. The sun climbs higher, yet its light falls thin and tired across the fields, as if it has traveled too far and lost itself on the way. You notice it first in small things, because small things are how disaster introduces itself. The mud stays cold in the morning. Frost lingers in shaded places when it should have vanished. The grass comes in patchy, reluctant tufts. The barley shoots rise, then pause, green but uncertain, like children waiting for permission to speak. You walk the same rows again and again, trying to convince yourself that growth is happening, only slowly. You crouch, press 2 fingers into the soil, and feel dampness without life. Not dead earth. That would at least be clear. This is worse because it is undecided. Every day asks you to hope, and every evening gives you less reason. Around the village, people begin to change their habits without announcing it. A woman who once scattered feed freely now keeps her hand closed longer over the basket. A man checks his fence twice, not because the fence is broken, but because worry needs somewhere to go. The old people watch the sky from doorways. The children ask why it is cold, and the adults answer with practical lies. It will pass. It is only a poor season. The Lord tests those he loves. The mist will lift. The weather will turn. But the mist does not lift. The weather does not turn. By rights, the sun should be drawing strength into leaf, stem, milk, muscle, and bone. Instead, every living thing seems to be waiting. The cow gives less. The hens are slower. The garden behind the house looks thin. Even the smell of spring is faint. There should be wet grass, open soil, and the sharp green scent of life returning. Instead, there is smoke, cold mud, old straw, and the sour breath of animals kept too long on too little feed. This is the cruelty of a failed spring. It does not look like the end of the world. It looks almost normal. A stranger walking the Roman road might see your village and think people are managing. Smoke rises. Doors open. Men and women work. The church bell rings. Children carry sticks. Someone repairs a roof. Someone leads an animal to water. The world has not stopped. That is the frightening part. A bad season does not arrive with a sign hung over the field. It arrives as a delay. A smaller leaf. A thinner animal. A colder dawn. A mother pausing before cutting bread. You begin to understand that the field does not have to fail all at once to ruin you. It only has to fall behind. A week behind, then 2. A little less growth, a little less grass, a little less milk, a little less strength in the hands that must keep working anyway. Modern people imagine hunger as emptiness, but before hunger becomes a pain, it becomes math. How much grain remains? How much seed must not be eaten? How many mouths are in the house? How many days until harvest, if harvest comes at all? You stand at the edge of the barley and look up at the pale disk above you, bright enough to cast a dull shadow, too weak to comfort the earth beneath your feet. The season has turned, but it has not saved you. Spring has come, and the plants do not believe it. By early summer, the fear has moved from the sky into the house. It sits beside the storage pit. It waits near the bread. It follows every hand that reaches for food. No one says famine yet, because that word is too large, too final, too close to surrender. Instead, people use smaller words. Poor growth, cold light, bad timing, a hard season, thin pasture, less milk. They speak as if naming only pieces of the trouble can keep the whole trouble from entering the room. But the room knows. The body knows. The children know before the adults admit it, because children are the first to notice when portions change. The bread is cut thinner now. The crust that once would have gone to the dog is saved. The porridge carries more water and fewer grains. The pot still steams, but steam is not food. You hold your bowl in both hands and feel its warmth against your palms, and for a moment, that warmth almost lies to you. Then you taste it. Mostly water. A little barley. A trace of yesterday. Hunger does not always arrive as pain. At first, it arrives as measurement. A thumb laid against a loaf before cutting. A longer look into the grain sack. A quiet argument over whether the seed grain can truly remain untouched. That is the cruelest part. The grain saved for planting looks exactly like the grain that could quiet a child tonight. There is no mark from heaven on it. No warning carved into each kernel. Only knowledge. Eat it now, and the stomach stops aching for a while. Save it, and maybe there is a harvest later. Maybe, in a strong year, this choice would be unthinkable. In this year, it becomes a shadow across every meal. Outside, the animals make the same calculation in their own way. The cow's ribs show more clearly beneath her hide. The pig roots through straw with sharper impatience. The hens give less, and every missing egg feels personal. Grass should be feeding them by now, thick and bright across the edges of the fields. But the grass is poor, and poor grass becomes poor milk, poor strength, poor work. Nothing fails alone. That is what you begin to learn. The weak sun does not simply touch the barley. It touches the cow. It touches the milk pail. It touches the child's bowl. It touches your hands when they shake slightly after a long morning in the field. By midday, your stomach feels hollow, but the work does not become lighter to match it. The fence still needs mending. Water still has to be carried. Wood still has to be split. Weeds still creep between the barley rows as if they have more courage than the crop itself. You bend, pull, lift, carry, and count the hours by the small betrayals of your own body. A little dizziness when you stand too fast. A dull ache behind the eyes. Fingers slower on the rope. A temper that rises quickly and leaves shame behind it. Hunger changes people before it empties them. It shortens patience. It sharpens suspicion. It makes every visitor look like another mouth. Every favor look expensive. Every mistake feel dangerous. In the evening, when the family gathers near the hearth, no one eats until everyone has seen the portions. This is not ceremony. It is trust under pressure. The oldest pretend not to want more. The youngest fail to hide that they do. You take less than you could. Someone notices. Someone else looks away. Love in a hungry house is not soft. It is a piece of bread broken smaller than desire. It is a mother stirring water into the pot slowly, hoping the eyes around her will believe the meal has grown. It is a father saying he ate earlier when everyone knows he did not. Beyond the door, the pale sun slides toward the horizon without ever having truly warmed the day. The village grows quiet, but not peaceful. Behind each wall, people are doing the same arithmetic. How many days? How much grain? How many animals? How much strength? How long can a household become smaller in every way except the number of people inside it? This is how hunger enters history, not as a monster at the gate, as a hand hovering over a loaf of bread, deciding how thin tomorrow can be. By late summer, the hunger has become something people carry in their voices. It is there in the way neighbors speak a little less warmly across the fence. It is there in the way doors close sooner at night. It is there in the way footsteps pause when a stranger comes along the old Roman road. Because a stranger is no longer just a traveler. A stranger is a question. Does he need food? Does he bring news? Does he carry sickness? Does he know something your village does not? The sky has stayed pale for so long that people have stopped staring at it in wonder and started reading it like a message. In your world, nothing this strange can be only weather. Weather changes. Storms pass. Frost comes and goes. But this dimness lingers, and because no one can explain it, everyone begins to explain it anyway. The old woman near the well says the heavens are displeased. A man from the next settlement claims he heard that the same weak sun hangs over towns many days away. Someone else says the crops have failed because people have forgotten the proper prayers. The priest speaks carefully, but even careful words sound heavier when the church is full of hungry bodies. Inside the small church, the air smells of damp wool, old wood, candle smoke, and fear held too tightly. People stand shoulder to shoulder, not because there is comfort in a crowd, but because no one wants to be absent. When mercy is being asked for, the candles are thin and precious. Their flames tremble in the draught. The priest's voice rises and falls. asking for protection, for forgiveness, for rain when rain is needed, for warmth when warmth is needed, for the return of an order everyone once trusted without thinking. You bow your head because that is what people do. You know the words. You have heard them since childhood. But while your mouth follows the prayer, your mind returns to the grain sack, the field, the cow, the child's bowl. Faith can steady the heart, but it does not remove the arithmetic. Outside the church, whispers gather faster than facts. A poor harvest makes people search for a reason, and reasons are dangerous things when they cannot be proven. A family that still has a little more grain is watched closely. A widow who keeps to herself becomes easy to discuss. A traveler with an unfamiliar accent is remembered long after he has left. Small differences grow sharp edges. In better seasons, a closed door is only a closed door. Now it may mean hidden food. In better seasons, a neighbor boiling something after sunset is only making supper. Now the smell of cooking can draw resentment through the walls. Hunger does not only thin the body. It narrows the imagination until every person nearby becomes either help, burden, or threat. Still, life continues in its ordinary shape, and that makes the fear more intimate. Women mend clothing near doorways because cloth must last. Men inspect tools because iron is too valuable to neglect. Children are told not to wander far, not because the world has suddenly changed, but because adults have lost confidence in their ability to protect what is small. At the well, people speak of signs. Birds flying strangely. A calf born weak. A dream someone had before dawn. Smoke that would not rise straight. A patch of sky that looked almost red at evening. Each story is tiny by itself. Together, they become a net thrown over the unknown. You begin to understand that people can endure cold better than confusion. Cold has rules. Hunger has rules. Work has rules. But a sick sky has no rule anyone in your village can touch. So they give. It won. Sin. Punishment. Omen. Trial. Anything is better than admitting that the world can change above your head without asking permission and without explaining why. That evening, you stand outside your house as the last light fades. The village is quieter than it used to be. Not empty. Not broken. Just guarded. Smoke rises from low roofs. A dog barks once and stops. Somewhere, someone begins a prayer before the meal. Somewhere else, someone counts grain by touch in the dark. You look toward the fields, then toward the road, then up at the pale sky, and you feel the shape of the new fear. When people cannot understand the heavens, they begin to watch each other. By autumn, the world beyond your village begins to arrive in fragments. Not as grand announcements, not as clear news. News travels on feet, on carts, on the tired mouths of people who have walked too far and eaten too little. A trader comes down the old road with fewer goods than usual and a face that makes men stop their work. He says the dim sun is not only here. He has seen it over other valleys, other fields, other towns where market stalls stand half empty and people handle grain as if touching something sacred. A monk passing through says writers in distant places have recorded the same strange light, the same cold that does not belong to the season, the same unease spreading from one region to another. You listen, but the names of faraway places do not feel real in your hands. A city you will never see cannot fill your bowl. An emperor you will never meet cannot warm your roof. Somewhere far to the east, in a city larger than anything your mind can comfortably hold, rulers still speak of restoring Rome. They speak of armies, laws, provinces, taxes, churches, and the shape of power. They look at maps. They send orders. They believe history moves through palaces and councils, through seals pressed into wax, through men who sit on thrones, and imagine the world can be pulled back into order by command. Perhaps they are not foolish. Perhaps from where they stand, the world does look like something that can be repaired. But from where you stand, history has a different shape. It is the bottom of a grain sack. It is the sound a thin cow makes in the morning. It is a child licking the inside of a wooden bowl. It is the way your fingers ache when you tie a rope after a meal that was not enough. The great men of the age may dream in marble and parchment, but your life is measured in barley, smoke, mud, and daylight that fails to do its work. This is the difference between the history people record and the history people survive. A bishop may write that the sun gave little light. A court official may note that the year was unnatural. A chronicler may compare the sky to an eclipse. Those words will travel farther than your name ever will. But they cannot fully hold the weight of one evening in your house when everyone is tired, the fire is low, and the meal has ended too quickly. They cannot hold the silence after a child asks whether there will be more tomorrow. They cannot hold the moment when you look at the seed grain and feel shame for wanting to eat what must be buried in the earth. Still, the distant world presses in. Taxes do not vanish because the weather is strange. Obligations do not disappear because the crop is weak. The local lord still expects his share. The church still needs offerings. Roads still carry messengers, officials, travelers, and rumors. Power continues moving over the land like a cart wheel over frozen mud. And if the wheel crushes what is already fragile, it does not always notice. You begin to understand that empires do not have to hate ordinary people to harm them. Sometimes they only have to need things from them at the worst possible moment. Grain, labor, animals, loyalty, patience, all the things a hungry village has less of every week. Yet you are not living in a world of fools. The people around you know more than a modern stranger might think. They read clouds, soil, animal behavior, the smell of rain, the timing of frost, the color of leaves, the thickness of milk, the sound of a cough in a cold room. They do not know what has entered the sky, but they know what it is doing. They know that a weak harvest is not one problem. It is the first tile in a roof coming loose. After that comes the leak, then the rot, then the cold inside the house. Far away, names will be written. Justinian, Belisarius, kings, bishops, generals, men whose decisions will be copied by hand and argued over for centuries. But here, in the low light of autumn, no one speaks their names. Your world has narrowed to the field, the hearth, the storehouse, the road, the next morning. This is where the year is truly happening, not only in the sky above empires, but in the hands of people scraping the last grain from wood. Winter does not arrive as a surprise. It has been approaching all year, quietly, patiently, counting your mistakes better than you can. By the time the first hard frosts settle into the fields, your body has already been living in winter for months. There is less of you than there was in spring. Your belt sits differently. Your face has sharpened. Your hands look older in the firelight, the knuckles larger, the skin cracked from cold water, rope, wood, and soil. You still work, because work does not wait for strength to return. The roof still needs patching before snow. The animals still need shelter. Firewood still has to be stacked, though there is never enough of it. Water still has to be carried from the well, and each bucket feels heavier than it should. Hunger has made the world louder inside your body. You hear your stomach in the dark. You hear your breath when you climb the small rise beyond the house. You hear the child coughing near the hearth and count the spaces between each cough without meaning to. This is what the weak year has done. It has not ended life. It has lowered every defense. Cold enters faster now. Tiredness lasts longer. A scratch on the hand stays angry for days. Smoke that once only stung now sits deep in the chest. Water that once made the belly uneasy now feels like a risk you cannot avoid. You do not think of sickness as something separate from hunger. They live in the same room. One makes a place for the other. A body that has eaten too little has fewer walls inside it. The winter knows this. The house is closed tighter now, but tighter does not mean safer. The air under the roof thickens with smoke, damp, wool, animal smell, and the sourness of people who cannot wash often and cannot waste heat. The fire must be guarded. Too much would burn tonight means less warmth next week. Too little fire means the cold reaches the sleeping places before dawn. Every choice has teeth. Even mercy has a cost. Let the animal eat more, and there may be less for people. Save the feed, and the animal weakens. Eat the seed, and the future shrinks. Save the seed, and tonight becomes harder. This is how a bad year continues hurting you after the sky has already done its work. It leaves decisions behind like stones in a field, and you trip over them every day. In the village, more people stay indoors, but privacy does not exist the way modern people imagine it. Everyone knows who looks thinner. Everyone sees which chimney smokes less. Everyone hears whose child has been quiet too long, whose animal no longer calls from the shed, whose door does not open as early as it used to. No one needs to describe trouble. Trouble has a sound. It is the slow scrape of an empty bin. It is a pot stirred after there is almost nothing left to stir. It is a prayer spoken more softly because the person saying it is too tired to raise the voice. And still, the worst part is not always what has happened. It is what this year has prepared the world to receive. When bodies are cold, hungry, crowded, and worn down, illness does not need to be dramatic to matter. A fever in a strong season might pass through a house and leave people weak, but standing. In this season, even a small sickness feels larger. A stomach turned by bad water can steal the strength needed for work. A chest made raw by smoke and cold can make sleep thin. A child who misses too many meals does not recover as quickly. The danger is not one single terrible moment. It is accumulation. Too little food, too much cold, too much smoke, too little rest, too many worries carried in silence. The sky did not have to strike you directly. It only had to make everything else harder. That is the calm cruelty of this year. The pale sun hurt the field. The field hurt the grain. The grain hurt the body. The weakened body opened the door to whatever came next. And as you lie awake before dawn, listening to the fire settle and the wind push against the wall, you understand something without having words for it. You are not waiting for the disaster anymore. You are living inside the damage it left behind. By deep winter, you no longer remember the first strange morning as a single moment. It has become the shape of the whole year. The pale light, the cold spring, the reluctant fields, the thinner bread, the quiet house, the guarded village, all of it has folded together until time itself feels dim. You wake before dawn again, as you did months ago, with smoke in the roof beams and cold pressing against the walls. The fire is low. The room smells of ash, damp wool, old straw, and the faint sourness of stored food stretched too long. For a while, you stay still beneath the blanket, listening. A shift of feet near the hearth. A soft breath from the child. The wind moving along the outside of the house like a hand searching for cracks. Then the sky begins to lighten, and you know before opening the door that the sun will come back weak. It has been doing that for so long that even disappointment has become routine. Still you rise. That is what people do in your world. They rise because animals must be fed, because water must be carried, because a roof does not mend itself, because hunger does not excuse the day from beginning. Outside, the village sits under a hard gray light. Smoke climbs slowly from the roofs. The ground is stiff beneath your feet. The old Roman road is pale with frost, running past the settlement toward places you will likely never see. Somewhere along that road, news will keep moving. Some of it will be true. Some of it will be fear wearing the clothes of truth. There will be stories of failed harvests, of cold summers, of towns praying under the same strange sky, of rulers making plans in rooms warmer than yours, of scribes writing down the year as if ink could hold what it meant to live through it. But no record will fully remember this yard. No chronicle will name the exact morning your family made one loaf last longer than it should have. No. Court will measure the weight of a mother's silence while she stirred too much water into too little grain. No emperor will know the feel of your hands on a frozen bucket rope before sunrise. That is the part history often leaves behind. It remembers the sky darkening, the crops failing, the empires trembling, the years that followed. It remembers patterns large enough to be seen from centuries away. But living inside a pattern is different. You do not experience collapse as a map. You experience it as cold feet, a thin meal, a cough in the night, a neighbor who no longer smiles easily, a field that does not answer when you need it most. At the beginning, you thought the terrible thing was the sun itself, that pale disk hanging above the fields like a warning. Now you understand that the sun was only the first sign. The real danger was what its weakness touched. It touched the barley, then the animals, then the milk, then the bread, then the body, then the mind, then the way people looked at one another across a fence. A civilization does not always break with fire or shouting. Sometimes it breaks by subtraction. A little less warmth, a little less grain, a little less trust, a little less strength to begin again. And yet, even now, the village does not simply vanish. People still pray. They still repair tools. They still save seed they are tempted to eat. They still wrap children tighter against the cold. They still step outside each morning and look at the fields, because survival is not courage the way stories tell it. Survival is repetition under pressure. It is doing the next necessary thing when hope has become very small. You look up one more time. The sun is there, pale and distant, giving the world enough light to see by, but not enough warmth to trust. Months ago, that sight frightened you because it was strange. Now it frightens you because you understand it. The year did not end the world in a single stroke. It made the world harder to live in, one ordinary thing at a time.